guys, it's Tammy from LOL Custom Crafty Creations, and I'm here today with Little Miss Oops Baby, and I'm going to go through some of the things that I use in the process of making my custom LOL dolls that I've had people asking questions about for some of the basics that typically you're going to need on a regular basis when you're working with these dolls. So first of all, aside from having a doll to work with, that always helps. Oops Baby is one of my favorite dolls. She is the most versatile, so you can use her for pretty much anything. She's got the longer hair, which is really nice, and because it's blonde, you can typically dye it any color that you need, and you can cut it to any size or anything of that sort as well. And her hair is thicker. A couple of the other dolls, their hair isn't. Because of how she's got the pigtails, there is that extra layer, I guess, of hair that's thicker in that center portion, whereas like Her Majesty, she doesn't have that, so her hair is a little bit thinner. So it is nice having Oops Baby for being able to use for custom dolls. I will get back to her in a second because I know there are different questions in regards to how to remove the pre-existing paint, which we will discuss here shortly. But I wanted to go through some of the items that I use on a regular basis. And as you can see, apparently Pixie wants to help join and teach you guys as well. So first of all, it's going to be the paintbrushes. These are the Crafter's Choice paintbrushes with the grips. I like these because they're very easy to handle. They help you with obviously the precision and things like that, but they are really comfortable to use, whereas some of them, when you don't get the grips, then it starts to hurt your fingers when you're trying to do a lot of painting for an extended period of time. And I always got the multi-pack, but I do like this, the finer brushes that have the thinner bristles. Those are always really nice. These are just some of the other ones that I have on hand to show. That being said, this is my other set of tools that I really enjoy. And this set has the varied sizes on both ends, and these are great for doing small details, using to try to move things around if you're molding anything, and also for the eyes. One of my favorites is definitely one of the smallest because obviously it's really good for doing smaller details and things like that, and plus it's got the grips. These are very well usable. I picked the brushes and these up at Joann Fabrics, and I want to say they were between $5 and $8 for each set. The set of 3 I think was around $5, and then the multi-pack was around $7 or $8. Another one of my tools that I really do enjoy is this. It is the hairbrush that I use for brushing the hair. I apologize, I got a little bit left in there from when I was using it earlier. I use this to help brush out the hair for the dolls and to help style it. It works really well because it does have the metal bristles and they are very fine and together, so you can be able to work with the doll's hair a lot better. And so, one of the other things that I've had questions about was the paints, and what kind of paints do I use? Acrylic paints are what we use for the custom LOL dolls. And some of the brands that I particularly use are the Deco Art and the Folk Art. As you can see, I have a couple of different ones that are over here and shown. And I also do use the white and the black painter pens. Just an FYI, if you do use those, because they are a lot more liquidy, and because I use them for the eyes specifically, they will tend to run. So make sure you're using just a little bit at a time and being very cautious, because it's a very big pain in the butt when you have to go back because it gushes out some extra paint or it moves around into a spot that you don't like. And that's why I start with that, get a little bit of the paint on there for the eye, and then I use one of these to help move it around to the edges so that it is actually not going to be a huge mess and I don't have to go back to try to fix it. Another big thing that people have asked was, what do we use for sealing them? And here is 2 out of the 3 things that I use. The varied styles of the Deco Art clear varnish. There's also the gloss one is really good for the eyes, in my opinion. That's what I use. Everybody has their own specific one that they like. There's the satin, which I like to use a lot too, and the matte version, which doesn't give you that extra shine for when you're putting it on something that you don't want to have very shiny. So those are something that you want to make sure you get, and you can order those on Amazon. I found these at Joann's, Michael's, and at Meijer. Walmart doesn't generally carry it in stock, so you might want to check online or some of your other local stores. Another one of the things that I've had people ask a lot about was, what do I use for molding and adding my extra pieces on there? This is the Sugru, and it is about between $16 and $20 per 8-pack. And it does come in different colors. This one isn't all white. Obviously, I've got some missing because I was using that the other day. But it's a moldable glue that ends up drying, and it's a silicone. And it's really nice, easy to work with, and it does adhere really well to the dolls. So when you're in the process of that, it's helpful to make sure that once you put it on, and one of the recommendations and things that I found that works really well, before it dries, put a first layer of paint on there, whether it's white or a color you intend on using, because then once you go back after it is completely dried, it's easier to paint over. And just to show you guys that it does come in some other colors, and there's lots of different variations. There's some of the other colors available as well. So there's that. And the Craft Bond is one of the things that I use for when I am styling the doll's hair. So as you can tell, Oops Baby, her hair already comes kind of crunchy and molded. That's typically what they use, some kind of glue in the factory at MGA. So when I go through and I restyle their hair, after I get it wet and brush through it and do all that stuff, I do make sure I use this Elmer's Craft Bond, and I will put that right in the hair and help to use my brush to brush it in really well and help style it and put it in whatever position I want. And then I let it dry, generally at least 6 to 8 hours, so it does get dried all the way through, and then it is set in place really well, so you don't have to worry about it moving if you don't want to. If you do want it to end up being able to be moving around and more pliable, you can use regular Elmer's glue and some water. That works just as well, but this one works really well for taming those bangs that like to come out, especially if you're making a JoJo doll or any other doll that you don't need the bangs to be visible. So another thing that people have been asking about has been, what do you use to get the paint off, and for the pre-existing paint? And that is 100% acetone. That is what I use. It's something that I found at Five Below. It's at Meijer, Walmart, most places you should be able to find it, whether it's this brand or another brand. And this one is the Onyx Professional Maximum Strength. There's nothing else in it. It is 100% acetone. In the process of using that, I also use these. These are just the cotton squares, and I have some out and ready to show. So as you can see, they're just basic cotton squares. Those are really good to use for these for multiple reasons. The first is they're not really fuzzy, which obviously with the cotton rounds or the cotton balls or even Q-tips at times, they are a lot more fuzzy and have the loose ends and stuff sticking out. So when you get these wet, and make sure that you just get it damp and you don't actually oversaturate it, but as long as you don't get it where it's dripping or anything and leaving any extra just sitting on the doll, your doll will be fine. Just make sure that you rinse her off immediately afterwards if you do have, or as you're going, if you get too much excess on there, because it can damage the dolls and melt them. And so don't put the dolls directly in the acetone or any of the accessories unless you want to see them turn into a project that isn't going to be usable. But these are really nice because obviously you can take it once you get it wet, do that and work it a little bit, and then you can flip it and use the other side. So you're not really wasting at that point, because when you're doing a lot of dolls, these can be used like half a bag in a day if you're doing multiples, or if you mess up a lot, because in the beginning I did. I know everybody has their thing, and you gotta kind of learn your tricks and your techniques, so that is part of the fun. But that is one thing, don't be scared to use it, just make sure that you're actually taking caution and paying attention to how much you do use when you use it. And the other thing that people have asked is, what do I use to dye their hair? So this is the Rit Dye More Synthetic, specifically hair fabric dye that I use to dye Oops Baby's hair, which I will be doing in another segment. And this is the only one that you need to use. If you use another one, because there is another version which is the all-purpose, which it really isn't. It does not work very well on the hair for these dolls. It will come out a lot more dull if it even sticks in at all. But the synthetic holds really, really well, and you don't have issues with it. I haven't at least had issues with it staining or anything after the fact. So once you rinse it and get it all taken care of, you shouldn't have to worry about any kind of excess runoff after the fact. But make sure you use this. If you do not find the color that you're looking for, specifically, like there isn't black that comes in the synthetic, you can take the graphite color that's there and you can mix the all-purpose black with that because it already has the synthetic in it, and it will stick better to the hair and it should work out fine. And you can also obviously mix the colors. Just remember as you're going, when you're dyeing their hair, if you go too light, you can always go back and do it again, but if you go too dark, typically you can't just undo that. So make sure you're doing little bits at a time, and I will do another a segment in regards to doing the hair dye and showing kind of the different process of taking care of that to make sure that you can get the hair color that you're just actually wanting to get. And the other thing that is one of my favorites that I have recently purchased is my lovely handy dandy headlight. Literally, it is to wear on your head. So a lot of times when I'm working with these dolls and I'm doing really fine details, I have had the issues where I'm not getting enough light to be able to see it. It's causing me to squint, or I'm not really getting the right angle. And obviously through the day it goes from being super light and bright, which is great, but then at nighttime, which is a lot of the time when I'm working on them, I don't have that natural light to be able to see. So I love using this. I picked this up at Harbor Freight for under 10 bucks. And it's got 3 settings, low, high, and a lovely handy dandy disco ball version. It also does, I'll aim it down just so you guys can see, but it has pretty good brightness for the most part, but that's the low, and you can zoom it in so you can actually see up close in one specific area, or zoom it back out. And then there's another one, and there's our disco ball. Yep, so that was one of the things that I like to use as well. Other than that, this is pretty much my basic setup for what I start out with and what you would probably want to have on hand. Obviously, you don't have to have everything on hand, but if you're trying to make a new custom doll, in essence, these are some of the items that you're going to want to use or pick up just so you have to be able to rely on and hopefully make some kind of awesome creation with. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or any other topics that you would like me to discuss in the future, feel free to leave a comment.